Hey guys, what's up? So I've been watching a lot of Shakespeare, authorship videos, and questioning who the real author is. And of course, I lean more towards the Francis Bacon side of things. However, I've been studying a lot of other videos that show Edward Devere may be a potential candidate for the authorship question. The 17th Earl of Oxford, um, and the numerology of 17 appears a lot in the codes and the ciphers and stuff. However, of course, Francis Bacon in Pythagorean numerology equals 17. Okay, so it's still any numerological code that corresponds to the number 17 also has Bacon. Okay, also incorporates Francis Bacon. So whenever these Oxfordians, as opposed to Stratfordians who believe Shakespeare was Shakespeare, Oxfordians believe Edward de Vere of the 17th Earl of Oxford was Shakespeare, and Baconians think Francis Bacon was Shakespeare, blah, blah, blah. Anytime the Oxfordians see the number 17, they think, oh, okay, that's proof it's the 17th Earl of Oxford, Edward de Vere. No, that's not always the case, because specifically Francis Bacon in Pythagorean gematria equals 17 also. So it could still be him. But because of Peter Amundsen's analysis of the first folio introduction, it shows the number 2. Okay, it emphasizes TWO. Like that's one of the main codes in the introduction. So the 2 could be Francis Bacon and Edward de Vere. Okay, it's 2 because Francis Bacon is 100% involved, no question. Okay, now we're going into, is Edward de Vere involved? Yes, but how much? Because he passed away 1604. Shakespeare passed away 1616. Francis Bacon passed away 1626. So Bacon had the most control over not only the first quarto editions of the sonnets of 1609 and Hamlet of 1604 and all that stuff, etc., but the first folio of 1623. So Francis Bacon literally had the most freedom to edit these productions, because De Vere supposedly was already dead. So how's he going to hide codes in something when he wasn't even alive for its publication? Okay, but you can go the other route saying, well, De Vere faked his death, so it wasn't really 1604, it was whatever. And that's fine. I just want more proof of it. Because with Francis Bacon, there is 100 examples of him being, or him having faked his death in some way, shape, or another. Okay, so, yeah, but that was still 1626. That was post 1626. Whereas Edward de Vere died 1604. Okay, but the first quartos of the first folio weren't until 1609, etc. So I'm just saying, the 2 were probably De Vere and Francis, but Francis was the foremost contributor in my estimation. Blah blah blah, big words. Let's see. One of my favorite Nietzsche quotes against being a drunk, basically, is that those who are already interesting don't need wine. Okay, and it kind of ties back to the Dorothy Parker quote of she refused to not be boring simply because she knows she wasn't a bore. So what does alcohol and substance abuse and whatever have to do with killing time, filling time, making time more interesting instead of dragging along? And I'm just sorry, I'm like, that Nietzsche quote is amazing. Those who are interesting do not need wine. Okay, but that doesn't mean, but well, what if you're alone all the time? You're interesting, but what makes boring life and reality interesting? Okay, yeah, there's that whole question too, we won't get into right now. And I want to confirm that, yes, I just want to, I know my beliefs seem kind of all over the place. And yeah, I believe the Bible, but I believe astrology. Yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I, look at reincarnation. And a lot of Christians are taught that if you believe the Bible, you cannot believe anything else. And yet, they don't have the wherewithal or knowledge to know that the Bible hides astrology. The Bible hides esoteric occult truths, and even reincarnation sometimes. The blind man went up to Jesus. He said, okay, the apostles passed by a blind man, and the apostles asked Jesus, what did this man or his parents do to make him blind? What did his actions do, and what was his karma, basically, to make him blind? So it implies that he did something to deserve blindness. Okay, and that's what's really kind of weird in the whole Western Judeo-Christian mentality of reincarnation. And yet the Bible says only those who are born again can be saved. And so a lot of people interpret that literally, say, well, I'm born again because I have a new mindset, I have a new attitude. And yes, that's awesome, good for you. But in the esoteric connotations, it could also imply that those who are literally born again, aka those who have gone through enough past lives to have enough wisdom to gain truth, are the ones who are saved. Okay? And I'm not saying only old souls get to go to heaven. I'm just saying only old souls maybe get to escape the New World Order that's coming, and only get to be raptured because of all the wisdom they've accumulated through their past lives. Yeah. I mean, I know it packs a punch, but to combine astrology with reincarnation, with the Bible, with the God of the Old Testament and Jesus, okay, and to explain all the evil of the Old Testament by Yahweh being Satan, but that's a whole other conversation. It really takes a load off. Okay, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and it gets exhausting sometimes for the giants. So sometimes these giants are there to explain why it's actually, giants are there to help explain the inexplicable. They're there to help summarize the complex. Okay, it took an apple falling on Newton's head to describe gravity. Okay, and now we have these complex, mathematical formulae for gravity, but it's the simplicity of experiencing, whatever situation God puts you in, that makes you kind of have a revelation. Newton had a revelation when the apple fell on his head. John of Patmos had a revelation when he was on the island of Patmos. He just happened to say, hey, the beast of Revelation is like a lion, a leopard, and the bear. I'm sure he knew about Hosea 13 when he said that Yahweh was like a lion, a leopard, and the bear. And I'm sure he knew about Daniel 7, also the Old Testament, which said that God was like a lion, a leopard, and the bear. So when John of Patmos wrote Revelation 13, saying specifically the beast is like a lion and a leopard and the bear, what do you think he was revealing? Okay, it's called Revelation for a reason. It's revealing what the Old Testament truly meant. Okay, I'm not saying the entire God of the Old Testament was Satan. No, just most of it. Okay, Genesis 1 was Elohim. Okay, Elohim is the true God of creation, did the Big Bang. Genesis 2:4, all of a sudden, this guy Jehovah shows up. And then you get all the judgment and the killing of animals and the slaughtering of nations. And then in the same breath, he'll say, thou shalt not kill. Okay, there's a huge discrepancy between the actions and the preachings of this Old Testament God, Yahweh. Okay, literally, the Old Testament God is do as I say, not as I do. I don't have to be an example, but you do what I say. Whereas Jesus is do as I do. Jesus is like, I'm never going to do evil. So make that an example. I'm not going to tell you to kill someone like the Old Testament God, but in the same breath say, thou shalt not kill. Jesus has no lying in him. He's like Abe Lincoln before Abe Lincoln. And the fact that the Old Testament God continuously contradicts him or herself is a testament, pun intended, to the fact that he is not what he appears to be. And what is Satan's number one goal in the universe? To take God's power, to appear to be God, to appear as an angel of light, to guide us into the whatever heavenly pearly gates. Or is it he's actually sending us to the, underworld, Hades. Hades is the Greek word for hell, by the way. If you actually look at the Greek New Testament translations, it's the word Hades that is used. And like, oh, that's Greek mythology, Well, Greek mythology was prior to the Judeo-Christian, thing that happened. Am I almost done? I guess I'm almost done with this. Yeah. Shakespeare's Francis Bacon, Yahweh is Satan. I'm still writing my book. The past month, since I went to Hawaii, February, I've just been kind of like chilled. I haven't been writing as much, just been kind of living life. But I'm going to get back into it, I promise. Okay? I have 110 pages written or typed and about 70 pages actually typed. Okay, so I write things before I type them because it's more natural to use a pen than to just say, these are my revelations with a keyboard. It just doesn't mesh well. But when I write with a pen, it comes much smoother to me. And yes, I have a Hogwarts shirt, but there's a lot of magic that the Bible is hiding, that the Bible Belt Christians are scared to admit. Astrotheology notwithstanding. But Solomon, okay? King Solomon was a type of magician, a sage, a shaman in a sense, okay? And who were the people who actually predicted Jesus' birth in the first chapter of the Old Testament? The Magi. The Magi looked to a star and then found Jesus' place and date of birth using the stars alone. Okay, so astrology is not some evil thing if that's exactly what was used to not only prophesy Jesus' birth, but confirm it by them literally visiting him. Okay, so they should change the Magi in the book of Genesis to basically astrologers. Matthew 2:10. This bright and shining star was given to them as a sign. 2:10. It's my birthday, February 10th, Aquarius. So I'm always biased towards the whatever book it is, verse 2:10 or whatever. But that's that. I think I'm done. It's not about magical wands and brooms and paganism and Halloween, Harry Potter stuff. It's about how Harry Potter actually represents Daniel, because it's Daniel Radcliffe, the book of Daniel, fighting against the beast, which is Voldemort. Voldemort, V, starts with a V for the fifth age, the book of Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream or a nightmare showing the 5 ages, and the last age that ends was the 5th age. Okay, the statue of Nebuchadnezzar is taken down. The stone of Daniel 2 hits the feet of Nebuchadnezzar, and it all comes crumbling down. That's significant of a comet or UFO hitting Earth to take away, mercy and grace. The mercy and grace is over when the end times happens, and then it will just be judgment and law again, like the Old Testament when the Jews were ruled by reptilians, aka Yahweh. But that's a whole other video. Later.